going to finish up our study guide. We are now in part B of the respiratory chapter. What was that first question that we had to skip?
Is it how is CO2 transported?
Okay, how is CO2 transported? Let's take a look. Here's a picture of it. We'll get to all this stuff in a second. Come on, where are you? I know there's a picture of it. It's coming up. All right, here we go. How is CO2 transported? You make CO2 in your tissues, and you send the CO2 into your blood. Got it? About 7% or so, I might say 10, make it easy, is dissolved directly in the liquid part of your blood. Another 23%, or I might say on my test, 20%, is picked up by hemoglobin. We call that carbaminohemoglobin. Okay, it picks up the carbon dioxide. But 70%, that's the test question, 70% of our CO2 goes straight into the red blood cell. The red blood cell converts it. See, it adds water to make carbonic acid. But then immediately it breaks the carbonic acid into bicarbonate, a base, and H+, an acid. Okay? Now, it will push out the bicarbonate into your blood while shifting in chlorine. Isn't that one of your questions too? Chloride shift?
Yep.
This is the chloride shift. Bicarbonate out into your blood while the chlorine shifts in. If they're going in opposite direction, we call that a what? Antiport. Anti. Got it? We're going to transport it in opposite direction. What's the other antiport that we've talked about since 210? Sodium-potassium pump.
Oh.
Aren't we pumping the sodium back out and pumping the potassium back in? And what's the charge on both sodium and potassium? Column 1, +1. So it's plus switching for plus. What is this? Minus switching for minus. And that is very important. All of your antiports have the same charge. What's a symport? Two things going in the same direction, and they always have a different charge. Got it? They always have a different charge. All right. Now, we call this the chloride shift because I'm shifting the chlorine in. What chlorine is in your blood? Were you drinking chlorinated pool water today? Now, where'd the chlorine come from? Oh, you know this. What you put on your French fries?
Salt.
Sodium chloride. Got it? So this breaks up into a sodium molecule and a chlorine molecule. Now we always talk about what sodium does. Sodium is good for, raise your blood pressure. That's not too good. But it's also used to bring in food, and you have to have sodium for your muscle contractions and your action potentials, right? We never talk about what's chlorine going to do. We're using it. There it is. It's in your blood to be used for exactly this purpose, what we call the chloride shift. When we shift this bicarbonate into your blood, is bicarbonate an acid or a base? It's a base. Now here's a good way to remember it. Even though it says bicarbonate, I don't see two carbons in here. It's just the way it's done. But guess what? Put a sodium in front of this. Sodium bicarbonate is Rolaids. Calcium bicarbonate is tum-the-tum-tum. And magnesium bicarbonate is milk of magnesia. What do we take those three things for? An upset stomach, too much acid. Well, how do I neutralize an acid? Give it a base. So that's how we know that's a base. Okay? Now, because we're putting this base into our blood, is our blood pH 7.0 like a glass of water? What is it? 7.35 to 7.45. Slightly basic. And that's why. Because we're always putting bicarbonate into our blood. Okay? All right. Now, here's the beautiful thing. who would have thought that a cell with no nucleus would automatically do this? That's the beauty of chemistry. Got it? The chemical situation is making this happen. My friends, if your blood was already too basic, would the red blood cell put more base in? No. Guess what? It won't do this, but it will put out the acid. Okay? What if your blood is too acidic? Would I put in the acid or put in more base? More base. You know what we call this? The blood buffer system. That's your blood buffer system right there, because it's your blood cells that are doing it. They're saying, hey, you need more acid? Here you go. Here's an H+. You want more base? Here you go. Here's an HCO3-. Isn't that cool? To keep your blood buffered. Now remember, a buffer is not the perfect solution. A buffer only works quickly and on small changes. That's why I think the book says a buffer system, what do they say? It doesn't control acid base. What it does, it helps with the gradual change of acid and base. Got it? They alluded to being like a river or something like that, some kind of a flow. And that's when you eat a pickle. What's a pickle, acid or base? Acid. So it's going to change your pH a little because everything you eat goes into your blood, right? Well, are you going to go to the hospital because you ate one pickle? Or drank one lemonade? No. So immediately we put in more bicarbonate, take care of business. 10-4. Remember, what did I say was the first line of blood pH? Buffering, these buffer systems. What's number 2? If this gets overwhelmed, what's the next thing I use? First thing we talked about. In the functions of the lungs, acid-base regulation. So, you're working out. What are you making?
CO2.
Yeah, but you're breathing that out. What else are you making?
Lactic acid.
Lactic acid. You can't breathe that out. So, is the acid building up in your blood? Yes. Does that mean you're more acidic? Yes. So guess what? Your lungs say, let me help. Your blood buffer system can't do it, so let me help. If I get rid of extra CO2, I won't make as much carbonic acid. And that's why when you work out, what do? You start breathing heavier. That's automatic to try to get your pH back in balance. Now, let's say, for example, you are so acidic that you can't get back in balance. Then the ultimate acid-base regulator kicks in, your kidneys. If you have too much acid, you will pee out acidic pee. If you're too basic, you will pee out more basic pee. And that's why in the kidney chapter you're going to find out our urine is usually 6, pH of 6, but it can be as low as a 4 and as high as an 8 to help us eliminate extra acid and extra base. 10-4? Now, besides working out, is there something else that might cause a patient, hint, hint, to breathe heavier? Maybe, but you'd be from lack of being able to breathe. No, why would you breathe heavier? Because you're going into acidosis. What's an acidosis that your patient might be going into here in the state of South Carolina? What?
It isn't diabetes, is it?
Yeah, ketoacidosis. When you are not getting any carbohydrates, no glucose into your cells because you don't have enough insulin to help you do that, then your cells have to rely on burning lipids, burning fats. Well, one of the things you make when you're burning fats is ketones, and ketones are acidic. So if you have runaway diabetes, you're becoming more and more acidic. Well, again, your buffer system can't keep up with it, but who kicks in next? Your breathing. And in nursing school, you'll be told it's called Kussmaul breathing. I guess named after the guy who first came up with it. You know, you're breathing heavy for no reason. You're not working out, but it's because you're acidic on the inside. Make sense? Okay. All right. So if this is the chloride shift, which happens where the tissues are, now please, on my test, chloride shift does not happen in the tissues, it happens in the red blood cell, where? At the tissues. Got it? So what happens when the red blood cell makes it to the lungs? We have to do the reverse. We slide the chlorine out, the bicarbonate back in, put it together with the H, and out comes the 70% of CO2. The other 20 or 23% that was held by the hemoglobin jumps off, and the 7% or 10%, depending on what I have on my test, is what comes out of the blood itself. Got it? But chloride shift near the tissues, reverse chloride shift near the lungs. And that's the beautiful thing. Everything pretty much in biological nature is reversible. It goes this way and it goes that way. Got it? And that's the cool thing. All right?
Next up, what conditions enhance HB's affinity for O2?
Okay. Now that's going to be, I've got a whole video on that, so it's a little more detailed than what I can tell you right now. But I do want to say, I know I got something in here. See, there's your, remember we talked about nitrogen narcosis, seeing mermaids? I put him up here because that's Jacques Cousteau, the guy who invented the scuba tank. Anybody know? Anybody ever heard of Jacques Cousteau? Okay, the Jacques Cousteau specials that used to be on PBS? Yeah, I grew up on that stuff. He's passed away now. He invented the scuba tank because he needed to swim underwater for a long period so he could put bombs underneath German boats because he was in the French resistance during World War II. And he said, I can't swim from here to there holding my breath. And I can't walk on a hose that long across the bottom of that canal or whatever, or that inlet. He says, I need to be able to carry oxygen on my back, but it has to be pressurized enough for me to go deep enough so they can't see me. I can't be swimming across the top of the water. And so he invented the scuba tank. Anybody know what SCUBA stands for? Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. That's SCUBA. Okay? So, and from the money he made with that patent, he was able to buy the Calypso, which was an old freighter that he converted into a biology station and hired a bunch of crewmen and a bunch of photographers, and they went around the world doing specials on whales and penguins and sharks and octopuses, and it was like every other month it would be on PBS, and man, we were glued, you know. All right, let's see. I know it's in here somewhere. Yeah, see, 70, 23, 7. Okay, come on, Weber. I know you're in here somewhere. That's if an hypoxia is. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right. Have you ever wondered why oxygen jumps on to your hemoglobin in your lungs, but jumps off in your working muscle tissue? Well, there's a difference between what your muscles are doing and what your lungs are doing. Let me ask you a simple question. What do you feel more familiar with? What your lungs are doing day to day, or what an active muscle is doing?
Lungs.
What?
Lungs.
Really? What temperature are your lungs now?
Oh, I think that muscles.
What's your pH of your lungs right now? Got it? We understand muscles more because we've been talking about it since high school. Okay? Even in PE class. All right? So let me just, you can shift it over here. I'm going to draw something real quick on the board, and I want to do half of it. I'm not going to do the whole thing because that's on the other video. But This is in, I'm going to call it working muscle. Okay? Now, in working muscle, what do I want oxygen to do? Do I want oxygen to come from my muscles to my blood or from my blood to my muscles?
From your blood.
Right, okay. So I want my, they're not working. I want my hemoglobin to, I can't spell, drop off oxygen. Got it? Now, does anybody know what the word affinity means?
You like it.
You like it. Affinity means I like it. So, I want hemoglobin, that's short for hemoglobin, I want hemoglobin to lower its affinity for O2. Got it? Does that make sense? I want hemoglobin to say, I don't like you anymore. Here, tissues, you can have them. Okay? So, what is it? Is this any better? Yeah. Okay. I want to do it in red or pink because I want you to, that's a muscle. Got it? Okay. So, can somebody tell me, what is, when it comes to temperature, what's the temperature of my working muscles? Lower than normal or higher? Yeah. Temperature goes up, doesn't it? When it's working. All right. When it's working, do you have more oxygen in the tissues or less?
Less.
Less, because you're using it for cellular respiration. So your O2 levels are actually down. But what are your tissues making when you're doing cellular respiration? CO2.
Yeah.
So my CO2 levels are higher than normal. Am I making more acid or less acid in a working muscle?
More.
So my acid levels are high, whereas my base is what?
Low.
Low. Does that make sense? Okay. Or you could say, don't forget, my pH is becoming what? If you're more acidic, what's your pH? Closer to 1 or closer to 14?
Closer to 1.
Closer to 1. So your pH is dropping when your acids go up. Got it? And then there's one more thing. One more thing. There's a chemical called BPG, bisphosphoglycerate, no big deal. This is created in active tissue. So am I making more or less in an active muscle? More. Got it? Okay. Now guess what? All of these cause oxygen to jump off of hemoglobin. Heat, high CO2, high acid, high BPG cause, those are the chemical situations that simply make oxygen go jump because the hemoglobin says, I don't want you anymore. Okay? Does it require any ATP energy on the part of the red blood cell or your tissues? No. It's happening, what, extrinsically or intrinsically?
Extrinsically.
Try again.
Intrinsically.
It's happening in the muscle. It's happening where the conditions are.
Okay.
It's intrinsic. Got it? Extrinsic means from somewhere else. It's happening intrinsically. That's why, which one of my arms is going to get more oxygen? Yeah, the one that's working. Because what's happening here? All of these things are happening here. Got it? Now, don't flip out. But guess what we can say definitively about our lungs? Every one of these is the opposite in your lungs. Your lungs are colder. Your lungs are more basic. Your lungs have less BPG. Because guess who's working when you're breathing? Your lungs don't work.
The muscles.
Your muscles in your chest are working. When you blow up a balloon, is the balloon working or are you working? You are. The balloon's not alive, right? It's not puffing itself up, is it? It's not squeezing itself down. It's you throw it in there and it wants to throw it back out. Does that make sense? So your lungs are like a balloon. Your muscles are like you pumping up that balloon, okay? So that's why I always do this. If you know what your working muscles are doing, then the exact opposite is what your tissue, is what your lungs are doing, okay? So take a look at this. So what would happen? Hemoglobin jumping off or hemoglobin jumping on? Remember? Well, I'm sorry, not hemoglobin. Oxygen jumping on hemoglobin in your lungs and jumping off in your tissues, right? Okay. So under this condition, if I have more, this is the partial pressure of oxygen, okay? The P here is partial pressure. Partial pressure of oxygen is increased. Do I have my hemoglobin dropping off oxygen or pick it up?
Picking up.
Picking up. If you already have oxygen, why drop it off? You don't need any. Got it? And your lungs are full of oxygen, you just took it in. Okay? All right. What happens if my pH is becoming basic? Do I pick up oxygen or drop it off?
Pick it up.
Pick it up. Because I only drop it off where there's acid. What if my BPG was increased?
I'm gonna drop it off.
I'm dropping off because BPG is increased in working tissues. What if my temperature gets colder? What?
Picking up.
I'm picking up because my lungs are colder than my muscles that are working. Does that make sense? And that's what that's all about. So I just tell my students, think about what your working muscles are doing. And if this question is not what your working muscles are doing, then it must be the opposite of dropping off, it's picking up. Got it? Your lungs where you pick up oxygen. And again, do your lungs have to use ATP to make this happen? No. Just because of the chemical and physical conditions of your lungs, oxygen jumped onto the hemoglobin. And because of the chemical and physical situation of your muscles, it jumps off. And it'll jump off where it's hotter. It'll jump off where it's more acidic. It'll jump off where there's more BPG. Got it? That's why between the two muscles, this one gets more and this one gets less, because he's not working as hard. Got it? Okay. Make sense? Okay. Alrighty. See, affinity has to do with attraction. And this demonstrates what?
Intrinsic.
Mr. Weber, he loves to sneak those words in there. Okay? And that's why on my video that's purely this, I have what's happening in the tissues listed next to what's in the, and I do it in red versus blue. That's why I did that one kind of reddish pink. Okay? All right. Now, that is going to lead us to this. Wasn't there an oxygen saturation curve question? Or concept?
Yes. What makes the oxygen hemoglobin saturation curve move?
Okay, move. Now, first we have to understand, this is the oxygen saturation curve. We call this a sigma curve, because it kind of looks like an S. Got it? Notice, see how it quickly goes up and then it flattens out? All they're saying that it very quickly picks up oxygen. And even if I force more in there, it can't pick up as much as it did before. Got it? That's why the curve flattens out. Okay, what I want to show you is, I thought it was on here. Where's my curve moving? Yeah, there it is. Okay. See, here's my normal curve here in the middle. 10-4. Now, what's happening in this picture? That's your body temperature, 38, right? What's my body temperature doing? Getting hotter or colder in this direction? It's getting colder in what direction? To the left. Got it? Left, right? Yeah, this is not a patient looking at it. This is a piece of paper you're looking at. So as we shift towards the right, no, notice we're getting colder. And what is this sigma curve doing? Just shifting. It's not getting taller. It's not getting shorter. It's literally shifting over. Okay? What does this mean? That the colder you are, the less oxygen jumps off the hemoglobin. It stays on the hemoglobin. What happens if you get hotter? More oxygen jumps off the hemoglobin. That's why it shifts when you get hotter. Now, what clinical significance does this have for our patients? Well, have you ever heard of some kid drowning in a pool in the summer? Why did he drown in the pool? Because the water is warmer. His body uses the oxygen faster. You run out of oxygen, your brain dies. But have you ever heard of a kid falling through the ice, being underwater for 20, 30, 40, an hour long, and getting rescued and coming back to life? Yes. And why is this? Because the colder it is, are your muscles moving? Do they need more oxygen? No. And because the hemoglobin, when it's colder, see, it drops it off. When it's hotter, it holds on to the oxygen longer, so it can circulate and only drop a little bit off to keep your brain alive. And that's why people who fall through the ice can actually survive being underwater. Because the coldness makes the hemoglobin hold the oxygen more, and if your body isn't working, the only thing that's going to be warm is your brain, and it's going to get the oxygen that it needs. It's amazing. Okay? You can look it up. There are countless tales of kids who fell through the ice, ice fishing or whatever, and they were underwater, so they got help, and they pulled them up, and they still lived.
Do you get like brain damage from that at all? Or?
Apparently, they haven't seen much. That's the beautiful, at least the stories that I've seen online, yeah, there was no. They forgot what happened when they fell through the ice. They have no memory of it. But they're supposedly right back to normal again, which is amazing to me. Just absolutely amazing. Okay, there was a movie that actually showed this. It's called The Abyss. Anybody ever seen that? Okay. Yeah, it's probably on Netflix for and no, don't pay for it, but I'm just saying it's one of those freebie movies because it's like 20 years old. But in one of the scenes, the husband and the wife are stranded at the bottom of the sea where it's incredibly cold. But during the fight with the bad guy, his submarine hit theirs and whatnot, the submersible, and one of their two diving suits got torn, so there's not enough, So the husband said, here, you take the good suit and you walk back to the sea lab, and I'll just drown here. She goes, no, I got a better idea. Let me drown, and since you're bigger, and you wear the suit and you carry me back and bring me back to life when you get back to the station. And that's what he did. He let her drown in the water, whether it was ice cold. It kept her alive. He carried her back, and then, and it worked. Okay? Of course, the only reason they did that scene is because, that's what the actress said. That was not my favorite scene because they had to shoot it over and over and over again. I had to keep everybody's shirt torn off. But anyway, not that I'm saying it would happen because nobody's ever been at the bottom of the sea that long to do this, but it's based on science. Okay? Every once in a while when I see a dumb movie, at least I get a little hint out of it. Oh, I like the science of it. Because it ends up with a bunch of underwater aliens rescuing everybody. Okay? So that's a little bit science fiction there. Okay? Alright, does that make sense? Now, look at this. Here's my normal curve with my normal pH between 7.35 and 7.45, right? What's my pH doing here? Getting more basic. What am I doing here? Getting more acid. And what happens when I'm more basic? Just like when I'm colder. What's happening when it's more acidic? Just like when it's hotter. It shifts. Shifts to the right, shifts to the left. Okay? And that's what I mean by what's going to make the chloride shift. And the chloride. What's going to make the oxygen saturation curve shift. Got it? Because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to have a question like this. Come on. And I'll say, what's going to make this shift to the right? A, B, C, or D. What's going to make it shift to the left? A, B, C, or D. Got it? Because it's based on this idea of the intrinsic conditions causing hemoglobin to let go of oxygen or to hold on to oxygen, have affinity for it. Cool beans? No? Okay. What else?
All right. What allows us to breathe in and breathe out? I feel like
We talked
kinda
about that,
talked
yeah.
about it.
Changing the shape of your chest to increase or decrease the what in your chest? The pressure, right?
The next one was gas law that deals with partial pressure and total pressure.
Okay, there are two gas laws. Don't worry about the equation. Got it? Don't worry about working any math problems. 10-4. What you do need to know is that it's based on this. Okay? It's based on Dalton's law. Now, Dalton's law simply says that the pressure, 760, in this room is the addition of all the partial pressures of each gas in the room. That's all. So, see, here's gas 1 with a pressure of 1, and here's gas number 2 with a pressure of 2. Put them together, you get a total. Add them together. Got it? Okay. That's Dalton's law. And that's why when we say, gee, how much oxygen is in here, we say PO2. Partial pressure of oxygen is, and a number. The partial pressure of nitrogen is, and a number. Okay? Don't memorize this stuff. But see, nitrogen is the most, oxygen is next, CO2 is very little. But when you put them all together, there's your 760. 10-4? That's all. That's Dalton's law. Put them all together, put all the partial pressures together, P, to make your total pressure. All right? Okay. Now, there's another one called Henry's law. Henry's law says if I add more pressure to a gas, more of the gas will dissolve in water. Gee, what water are we talking about? The water inside the alveoli and the water in the liquid part of your blood. Because the gases here have to go into your blood, okay? And all they're saying is, look, under low pressure, most of the gas is here, very little in your water. If I increase the pressure, am I not forcing more in here? And that's the nitrogen narcosis we talked about. Right now, we're only breathing nitrogen under 1 atmosphere. In your lungs, straight back out. It doesn't want to go into your blood. But if you're breathing through a scuba tank with 2 times, 3 times, 4 times air pressure, yeah, it's going to get forced in. Okay? All right. And that's the reason why they want to know that stuff. Okay? This is a simple thing. Look how quickly blue blood becomes oxygenated in your alveoli. How fast? 1/4 of a second. That's the question. What's happening in that first 0.25 seconds? I'm going from blue to red, that fast. 1/4 of a snap of your fingers. This is why it doesn't matter what you cut. If you cut a vein, because it's blue, what color is it when it comes out? Because as soon as it touches the air, it becomes fully oxygenated. Okay? And that's beautiful. I like this because how long does it stay in my lungs? 3 times 0.25. That means even if I have COPD, even if I have bronchitis, am I going to be dead the first moment I have COPD? I can live for years with it because I'm so efficient at grabbing what little oxygen I can get to stay alive. So people can have COPD for multiple years. Okay? All right. I just put this in here because I thought it was interesting. Have you guys ever seen a pulse ox? Yeah, do you know how it works? See, I didn't know this, so I looked it up. You have infrared light going through from one side to the other side. Got it? And the less hemoglobin you have, the easier the light is to go through. The more hemoglobin you have, the more the light gets picked up. So very little goes through. And so there's a little detector in here that tells how much is that light going through. The more it goes through, the less oxygen you have. The less goes through, the more oxygen you have. And that's why it gives you a readout. It tells you your heart rate 77, but you have 98% oxygen saturation because 98% of the red light couldn't go through your finger. It got picked up by the oxygen. Isn't that cool? You don't even have to cut yourself open and draw blood and whatnot. It's right there. And that's why everybody carries those around in hospitals to do a quick pulse ox. Okay? Pulse, Esther 77, and oxygen concentration. I thought it was cool. That's why I had to look it up. But there it is.
They sell, like Apple Watches.
Yeah.
They'll do that too.
They
now.
do that too? Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. I know all my colleagues say, why don't you have an Apple Watch for your heart and for your diabetes and stuff? Hey. And I said, okay, give me $100. At the moment, I haven't got that kind of, huh?
But I gotta have one.
Yeah.
For the blood pressure.
How's it doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Eh.
Oh, great. That's not good. All right, what's next, partner?
We talked about this already, but what is the bends?
Yes, we talked about the bends. I know I got a picture of it. All right. That's why I like going online, finding good, goofy pictures. It's a good way to remember things. See, the bends puts bubbles in your brain. Bubbles of what? Nitrogen. Because the nitrogen has been forced into your blood by high pressure. Well, as you go up out of the water, but as you're going up, there's less and less water pressure. So it says, okay, let me come out. And the trouble is, it's going to come out not in your breath. If you only go up slowly, you go up too fast, it's going to come out in your blood vessels. Okay? Causing excruciating pain. Okay?
Next up, identify parts of the spirometry graph, which we already did that.
Tidal volumes of, okay.
And then what causes pleural effusion? I think we talked about that too. I'm going to skip the next one because that's the hemoglobin saturation curve.
Yeah.
Different types of hypoxia.
Okay, here we go. I know it was right here. The different kinds of hypoxia, to me, is just like the different kinds of other things we talked about. The name tells you the cause, okay? At the moment, I can't remember what it is that we talked about. But hypoxia is not a disease. It simply means low oxia being delivered, okay? Now, it can be classified by what's causing this. Well, what if you're anemic? That means you don't have enough blood, red blood cells, or hemoglobin, mostly red blood cells, to carry enough oxygen to your tissues. So you're hypoxic, low oxygen delivery because fewer red blood cells. Okay? It could be ischemic hypoxia. What's ischemia? Impaired blood flow. You got a blockage in one of your blood vessels, or a closing down, a the constricting of a blood vessel maybe because of plaque buildup. You got plenty of red blood cells, I just can't deliver them to this part of your body, so this part of your body suffers hypoxia. Got it? All right. Histotoxic. This is something is toxic to you, something toxic to your tissues, causing your tissues to not be able to use the oxygen that we're delivering. An example of that is cyanide poisoning. And the reason we call it cyanide, because cyan is what color? Blue. And your fingers turn blue. And your lips turn blue. Okay? Why does it kill you? Because cyanide destroys your cytochrome cells in the mitochondria. If I can't use oxygen in my mitochondria, can I make ATP? If I can't make ATP, can I stay alive? That's what kills you. You got plenty of air, you got plenty of blood vessels, you got plenty of red blood cells, but once the oxygen is delivered, because your mitochondria aren't working, I can't use it. Then, Cora? All right. And that's why they call it cyanide poisoning, because the first sign that you have it, you're turning blue. Okay? And then there's hypoxemic hypoxia. Okay, what's hypo? Less. Less what? oxygen. Where? In my blood. So it's not the fact that I don't have enough red blood cells or that my blood vessels are messed up. It's I can't get enough air. I can't get enough oxygen from the air. I can't get it in. Okay? So that could be a problem with a ventilation perfusion coupling. We'll talk about that in a second. Could be a problem because I've got some kind of breathing disease and I can't breathe in the air. I might be at the top of Mount Everest and can't breathe in enough oxygen. Got to do the high altitude. Does that make sense? So, red blood cells fine, blood vessels fine, nothing toxic, but I don't have enough air coming in. Hypoxemic. Got it? Low oxygen. Low oxygen. Okay? All right. And carbon monoxide poisoning. Remember I told you about carbon monoxide taking the place of oxygen on hemoglobin and then staying. Okay? And here, victims do not show a sign of cyanosis. Instead, they have a healthy blush. Why? Because your hemoglobin still has an oxygen attached to it called CO, but that oxygen still makes it red. So you don't turn blue. So everybody thinks, oh, you're fine. Got it? But this is the leading cause of death from fire and misused generators. That's a picture I just simply found on the website. If your chimney is plugged up, what's trying to go out goes back into your house. Got it? If you're not using your stove right, gas-powered appliances that are not being vented correctly, the gas, will give off carbon monoxide. Your car, letting it run in a closed garage, or a garage attached to the house. Because where is that carbon monoxide going to go? Into the roof and down into your bedroom. Does that make sense? Same thing with running your generators. People always say, I don't want to have that generator outside, I'd rather put it in the back of the house. It's easier to put gasoline in it. Well, guess where the carbon monoxide is going to go? Throughout the whole house. And the next day, the family doesn't wake up. Because remember, carbon monoxide makes you go to sleep. You don't even panic. You sleep and you'll wake up. There was a situation at a hotel in Colombia, happened a few years ago. People have been complaining. There's some weird, funky smells in here when the heater is running in the wintertime. Until one day, they had to do a wellness check on a couple because their family members said, hey, I know they're staying at your hotel, but they won't pick up the phone. They died from carbon monoxide poisoning. There was another case at SC State, South Carolina State University. They had gotten a hotel, and they made a deal with a local hotel in Orangeburg to house students. Again, the students were complaining. I smelled something funky. Well, guess what? One day, several of them died. They were found dead. Okay? Yeah, there's still a big lawsuit. You can see the hotel. It's like covered in weeds and stuff because everybody's still fighting over whose fault is it. I think the parents would rather have their kids back. Okay? So, yeah, be careful. That happens a lot. Okay? All these things can do that. All right. What else are we looking at?
Identify blue bloater versus pink puffer.
Okay. This is what I like about nursing school, is that there's a website they make you go to with cool pictures. You know the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words? Well, there you go. Here is your pink puffer patient. Skinny, barrel chest, too weak to sit up. He is in what they call the tripod position. He's got to rest on his elbows. He hasn't got enough energy to sit up because he's been huffing and puffing because every time he breathes in, he can't breathe it out. Got it? He has to huff and puff to breathe it out. They use 20-30% of their energy just to breathe. But because the air can come in, they still stay pink. They still have the flush. Got it? Because there's still oxygen there. Got it? Okay. And what about this guy? I can't get the air in to begin with, so I'm going to start turning cyanotic. And because I don't have to huff and puff, I can get bigger. I mean, I can't go anywhere but sit on a couch, so I can actually get bigger. Got it? As opposed to this guy getting skinnier. And all they're doing when they do this kind of stuff is to give you some rhyming words to remember. P, P, B, B. Got it? That's all. It doesn't mean anything like, how can you call that guy bloating? He's only 10 pounds overweight. No, it's just that let's make two words that have the similar, what do they call that? Alliteration. Yeah. Okay? That's all. And that's the cool thing about nursing. You're going to learn all sorts of little quick alliterations and stuff for your patients and for your meds and stuff like that to remember. Okay? Cool beans? Now, please note, both of them are a problem. They're not going to get better by themselves. Notice, what do you need? Something to dilate your bronchioles and maybe something to corticosteroids to reduce the inflammation. Okay? But the causes are two different things, and the results are two different things. Okay? All right.
Know the difference.
Oh, by the way, this is emphysema, and this is chronic bronchitis. Okay.
Know the difference between AMS, HACE, and HAPE.
Okay. Was that here? Yeah, okay. Again, every once in a while, I remember a movie I saw on TV for free. I don't know why I don't pay money for it. There was a movie called Vertical Limit. Okay? Notice Chris O'Donnell, Bill Paxton. Okay? Not a bad movie, but I liked that they had science in it. Okay? It was about a bunch of mountain climbers. Got it? And one of them was a bad guy. I won't tell you who's the bad guy. But he was hoarding all the medicine so he wouldn't have to go through pulmonary edema, letting all the other ones die of pulmonary edema slowly as they were on top of this mountain. Okay? So here is what I think is a cool thing. Your book mentions just the words. I found a picture, that's me. I'm always looking for stuff, right? Okay, look at AMS. AMS, acute mountain sickness. When you are climbing Mount Everest, when you start going up kind of high, the first thing that you get is mountain sickness. What do you get? Fatigue, dizziness, maybe some vomiting and nausea. Okay? Because what's happening? It's messing with your brain. Got it? Okay. But you persist and you keep going, now you're going to get high altitude cerebral edema. Is that a good idea? Now your brain is expanding inside your head. That will lead to death, folks. Okay? Again, headache, confusion, drowsiness, something wrong with your head. Okay? And then the one that's going to probably kill you is high altitude pulmonary edema. That's the fluid, okay, building up around your lungs, making it harder and harder to breathe. Okay? Because you've been up there too long. And that's why we have, oh yeah, there's the movie The Abyss talking about, okay? And see, that's the picture. Look at all these people, back to back to back to back to back, trying to get to the top. Go get your picture and then come back down. Do you think those people can do this in 1 hour? That's a traffic jam. And it was a fatal traffic jam. Got it? Just waiting to happen. Back in the old days, they only allowed a small group, You get to assault the mountain this month, and you and your team get to do it next month. Each one of you is going to pay, 10, 15, 20,000. People looked it up for me. Thousands of dollars you pay the government for the right to climb up there. And then you pay thousands of dollars to the Sherpas for carrying their food, and carrying your food and your stove and your clothes and everything else for you. Got it? And you're paying for flying over there. You're paying for staying in the hotel at the bottom of the mountain. Got it? So it's not like it's going to be done by, us with no money, right? It's usually the millionaires that have the extra money and the extra time to get away from work for a couple of months to do this kind of stuff. But because they wanted to make more money, they said, okay, we'll let 100 people up there. We'll get 200 people up there. Come on, bring them all down. Of course, all this changed after COVID, and now we're back to normal going up. It's a handful here and a handful there. But this happened right before COVID. Look how high up it is. And like I said, in this group, 10 people died because they couldn't make it up and down fast enough before their lungs filled up with fluid. Pulmonary edema. Okie dokie. That's what I'm showing you. See? If this gets less and less and less, and this can't keep up with it, it's going to close up and fill up with fluid. And that's exactly what happened to those people. Okay? And the same thing happened in the movie, Vertical Limit. And another thing, when you are under the water for a very long time, besides the bends, you also get decompression sickness. Why? Because you're being under high pressure in the underwater lab, because it's got to be able to be under high pressure to push out against the water pushing in. And if you're breathing high pressure, what's coming in? Nitrogen. Where is it sitting? In your white matter of your brain. And so one character in this movie is showing signs of decompression sickness. He was shaking and he was changing his mood from being a nice guy to an evil guy. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going, oh, it's a little bit of science here. Okay, I'll watch the whole movie until the UFO showed up. Wasn't the same thing. Okay? All right, what else?
Hyperpnea versus hyperventilation.
Okay, hyperpnea and hyperventilation. All right, let's go to the lady who is hyperventilating. Okay? Okay. Hyperventilation means hyper breathing, right? Are we worried about exchanging or just breathing? Ventilation, in, out, okay? So, if she's breathing in and out very quickly, is that because she's working out or because she's worried about a test she's going to take? Yeah, got it? People hyperventilate because they're worried about something, right? Okay. Don't do that. I'm looking at you like, that was me last week. Okay. Because when you breathe faster than you should, what are you breathing out? CO2, faster than you're making it. So if you breathe out CO2, what are you breathing out? Remember, what did I tell you to think of? Acid. So what are you becoming? Basic. Got it? You're going into alkalosis. Got it? Is that a good thing? No, it'll make you pass out. Here's the thing. See, syncope. Passing out, fainting. So why do we breathe in a paper bag? Put the CO2 back in. Got it? Why a... Hey. No. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Can I finish it real quick?
Yes, sir.
How long can you wait?
I have somebody watching my kid in my car right now. It's the only inconvenient
Oh,
part.
that's not good. Do you have a laptop with you?
I do.
I'll let you take it on the laptop.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Paul.
No, that's okay. All right. I've almost made a thought. Okay, I'm back. So, this is why this hyperventilation is going to change your pH. You're going to become basic because you're getting rid of all the CO2 which would make acid. 10-4? All right. And you got to put the CO2 back. That's why you breathe in a paper bag, not a plastic bag, because you got to get the air in. Got it? Okay. No air in a plastic bag. She goes, that's why it didn't work for me last time. Okay. Now, what is... Oh, did I have a picture here or not? I thought I had a picture. Well, son of a gun. I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. What is hyperpnea? That is hyper breathing, but when? When you're working out. So when you're hyper breathing when you're working out, what are you breathing out? CO2. But it's the extra CO2 you're making. So if you're getting rid of the extra CO2 you're making, are you changing your pH? No. That's the difference. Hyperventilation changes your pH, but hyperpnea doesn't. You're doing it to keep your pH under control. Got it? You're getting rid of the extra CO2 you're making while you're working out. Okay? There you go. Both of them make you breathe faster, but two different outcomes. Okay? What else?
How does ventilation/perfusion coupling work?
Okay. That's a good one. All right, ventilation, perfusion, coupling. I'm pretty sure there's some stuff in here, but here we go. All right, that's my favorite picture for that concept. What does it mean to couple? Put together. What are the two things we're coupling? Air going in and out of your alveoli, and what? Blood going in and out of the capillaries of your alveoli. We've got to lock them together. Okay? Let's see if this makes sense to you. Alrighty? You know they're having that strike right now, so we can't get any goods and services brought to Walmart, stuff like that. Alright, so let's use Walmart and trucks as an example. Can we? Alright. Your red blood cells are like the trucks. And your alveolus is where the oxygen is that the trucks are picking up. Making sense? That's the warehouse where all the stuff is. Well, this warehouse is shriveled up. So do I have a lot of oxygen or very little? Very little. Let's say I only have 10 oxygens. Does it make sense to send 100 trucks? No, because 10 trucks will be full, but the other 90 will be empty. Isn't that a waste? So guess what? It makes more sense to send less trucks. If I only have 10 oxygens, I'm only going to send 10 trucks to pick it up. So what does that mean? I'm going to, what, dilate or?
Constrict.
I'm going to constrict my capillaries right there to make it balance. Oh look, I've got a nice big alveolus. I got a nice big warehouse full of oxygen. Do I only want to send 10 trucks? Or should I send 100 trucks to pick up the 100 oxygens? So what am I going to do? Dilate my capillaries. Now here's the beautiful thing. Do you have to control this? It's controlled locally. So it's controlled how?
Intrinsically.
Intrinsically. Each alveolus, depending on how much oxygen is getting into it, determines how much blood it's going to let go there. By closing sphincters. Remember those sphincters? What were those sphincters in an earlier chapter?
Pre-capillary.
The precapillary sphincters. We can shut them down if we don't need as much blood. We can open them up if we need more blood. And remember, the blood's only there for one reason. Pick up the oxygen. And we have it coupled. Got it? Because if this wasn't coupled, I now have a bunch of blood leaving with no oxygen. Is that good for hypoxia? No. Or here, I have very little blood picking up plenty of oxygen. Again, hypoxia. I don't get enough delivery. If we match it up, small for small, big for big, you have 100% delivery. Does that make sense? And the beautiful thing is, that's why you can have COPD for years, because not every alveolus is in trouble. Does that make sense? Or lung cancer, not every alveolus is in trouble. So these things can linger for a lot longer because it's one sac versus another sac. Cool beans? Isn't it amazing how your body can just automatically do all that kind of stuff? Yeah. It's, to me, the most amazing thing is what keeps us healthy. Because, there's plenty of things that make us sick, but it's amazing how we stay healthy. Okay? Thank goodness. Okay? All right, what's next?
Bronchial arteries in the lungs are analogous to blank.
Analogous, okay.
Analogous.
Okay.
Blank in the heart.
Analogous, okay. Analogous. Let me see, there's a picture. Do I have a picture here? Let me see. I don't know if I have that picture. It might be in A, but don't worry about it. I'll explain it. Okay. Yeah, probably in the other one. Okay. There's 3 analogous pictures, right? There are 3 questions about analogy.
Yep.
An analogy means this is like this. Got it? That's an analogy. This works like this. That's an English word. You use that, to explain how this story is analogous to what's happening in the real world, that kind of stuff. Okay? All right. So, what we're saying is, I don't even see a model around here. Mr. Triana's got stuff everywhere. Okay. What feeds your coronary muscles with blood?
Coronary artery.
Coronary arteries, right? Okay. So what feeds the lung tissue? No, the pulmonary artery and vein are just to get blood to and from the heart. So there's something else that feeds the actual tissue, and that's the bronchial artery and vein. So the bronchial artery and vein are analogous to the coronary artery and vein. Got it? It's a separate set of blood vessels other than the ones going in and out of the heart or going in and out of the lungs. 10-4? Okay. What's the next one?
Reserve volume in the lungs.
Okay, remember we have that reserve volume because our alveoli never close all the way down. And I asked you earlier, do your valves and your ventricles ever close? No, they go like this, big to small. Well, what do I call, what's the magic word for when your ventricle is totally full of blood? End diastolic volume. At the end of rest, your volume is the biggest in your ventricle. So what do I call it when your ventricle has squeezed and there's still something left over? And systolic volume. After systole, I still have volume. Even at the end of systole, I still have some volume. Does that make sense? And that's because what are your heart and your lungs both doing that they have so many things in common? What are they both doing? You're making it too hard. What are they both doing? How about the peanut gallery in the back? What do you think? They're both pushing what? Fluids. Blood is a fluid and air is a fluid. Got it? We're both pushing. What's a fluid? Anything that takes the shape of its container. Got it? Is a solid a fluid? No. But liquid and gas are both fluids. Got it? Fluid dynamics, already in engineering class. And so we never completely empty our ventricles. We never completely empty our alveoli. It's too hard to open them back up. So we simply make them smaller and bigger, smaller and bigger. Got it? Okay. What's the third one?
Obstructive pulmonary disease in the lungs.
Is analogous to what?
To the heart.
Okay. We said this. When I'm having obstructive pulmonary disease, what am I trapping in my lungs?
Air.
Air. So what's the one where I trap blood in my heart?
Congestive
heart failure. Got it? The walls are getting so weak I can't squeeze out as much blood as I used to. So I trap more. And I squeeze again, I trap more. I squeeze, and your heart gets larger. Okay? Cardiomegaly. Your heart gets bigger and bigger. Is that a good idea to have a big heart? No. That actually means your heart's weaker. Why? Because your heart muscle is like a rubber band. You pull it too hard, it's either going to pop or it's going to be no longer able to come back to its original shape. You stretched it out of shape. Does that make sense? That's what's going on. You got this, young lady? Was that all of it, sir?
That's it.
Wow. Okay. See you later.